All right, so for 717, we have a couple questions from the last 2 weeks, really. So we got one from 2 weeks ago, one from this past Sunday. This past Sunday, the question that someone asked me is Genesis 1:2 says the earth was formless and void. What does that mean? The answer, what would the earth have looked like? The answer is, I don't know. Apparently matter disordered, so I don't know. I don't know if it just means that it was uninhabitable, probably more the idea, but I'm not exactly sure. Formless and void, meaning no life there, no mountains, no oceans, no something like that. I'm not exactly sure. Good question, and my short answer is don't know. The second question in that regard is, how old is the earth? And the answer to that question is the same answer I give to the first one. I don't know. Now, you can do some mathematical calculations back through genealogies, and you wind up with the earth being anywhere from 6,500 years to as old as maybe 12 or 14,000 years old if you trace it back to Adam and Eve, and if you in the genealogies, how strictly you hold them and that kind of thing. So I've heard anywhere from 6,500 to as long as like 12,000 years old. In terms of the age of which, how long has the earth been here since Adam and Eve? And the question that's really being asked is, what about the 6 days of creation? Are they literal days? And if they're literal days, you have immediate textual problems. Within the text itself, you don't have a sun, moon, and stars until day 4. So if they're literal 24-hour days, you don't even have a sun, moon, or stars of which that we would normally mark a day with. So on that, I would say they may be literal days, but it seems that Genesis 1 that's not the primary focus of Genesis 1, of 24-hour days, but rather purposeful, progressive, step-by-step, ordered creation. And that seems to be more the emphasis, because the writer doesn't even try to explain why, before there's even a sun, there's 3 days has already elapsed. And this debate over the age of the earth is not a new phenomenon with the advent of evolution, that you have writers, even like Thomas Aquinas from 1000, around the turn of the first millennium, who writes from his reading of Genesis, are these days periods or epochs? He speculated that the earth was quite a bit older than the literal timeline by backing into it. And he wasn't trying to address any modern evolutionary or astrophysics debate of his day, just looking at the text. Martin Luther speculated on this as well. And so when I look at the text, the short answer is I'm not sure from the text. I don't know that you can determine the age per se from that. I'm not opposed to someone reading those 6 days as being literal 6 days. That's not an unreasonable assumption. But I would say, just from the text itself, I draw the conclusion that it is possible to view those days in some other ways, such as epochs or periods of time or phases of creation. Now again, that is just because you say it's not literal 24-hour days and phases doesn't immediately get you billions of years. It's just to say, I don't think that you have to have a billions of year old universe for God who can speak the universe into being. He can make it as fast or as slow as he wishes. Nor do I think you have to have a literal 24-hour clock running, because you don't have the sun that normally marks 24-hour periods until day 4. So I don't know. I'm interested in all those. I read through them a lot. I think about them a lot. In the end, I think the primary point of Genesis 1 is that God creates, speaks it into being out of nothing into something. He does it with order and purpose. There's not some naturalistic process to it where we say, well, he just kind of put the atoms in motion. I think that's not going to do. Intelligent design is a fine theory and all that. But if you don't have an actively involved deity involved in the creation, Genesis 1 seems to refute the idea that God just kind of set the atoms in motion and then said, well, we'll see how they turn out. Genesis 1 says God's actively involved, whether it's 1,000,000,000 years or 1,000 years, every step of the way, God is actively involved in putting the electrons and the neutrons and protons of every atom exactly in the place he wanted them. He's actively involved in every aspect of it. And so that's the primary issue for me, is God's active agent over all of creation. And so I don't know how old the earth is, and we'll find out when we see God face to face. But I would say we know this: he's made everything according to his order and purpose, everything he's actively involved in creating from the beginning, and every atom in the universe now is being sustained by the word of his power. That it's not just something he did in the past and then let it run its course. It's something he's daily, continually involved in. And so that's, I think, the main emphasis of Genesis 1:1. So the short answer to both questions is I don't know. I don't know what formless and void necessarily means, other than it's uninhabitable, and I also don't know exactly how old the earth is. My own gut feel tells me it's older than 6,500 years, but my own gut feel tells me it doesn't have to be billions of years old for the creation account to be true and accurate. So anyway, so next week, ask questions and maybe I'll have an answer.